The wine glass slipped from Pamela's manicured fingers, shattering against the marble floor in slow motion. Every eye at the dinner table turned toward the doorway where Director Wilson stood, federal badge gleaming under the chandelier light. My sister-in-law's face drained of color as she stared at my boss, then at me, her lips moving without sound. "You didn't tell them, did you, Vanessa?" Director Wilson asked, his eyes finding mine across the table. My husband Nicholas's hand tightened around mine beneath the tablecloth, not in fear, but in dawning recognition. For years, he'd believed I was just a financial analyst crunching numbers in a cubicle. Now, as I reached into my purse and placed my federal badge on the table, his fingers loosened their grip. "No," I replied softly. "I haven't told them anything." My name is Vanessa. I'm 35, and to my in-laws, I was nothing more than Nicholas's forgettable wife. This is the story of how I brought down an empire without raising my voice. For 10 years, I'd let them believe what they wanted, that I was just the quiet one, the invisible one, the woman who faded into the background at family gatherings. My mother-in-law's birthday dinner tonight was supposed to be like all the others. Pamela holding court at the head of the table, dripping in jewelry too extravagant for the occasion, making subtle jabs at my modest career while the family laughed politely. "What exactly are you saying?" Pamela's voice pitched higher than normal, her perfect composure cracking as she looked from Director Wilson to me. "Vanessa is just an accountant. She reviews payroll and makes spreadsheets." I met her gaze evenly. "Actually, I'm a senior agent with the Office of Federal Financial Investigations." My father-in-law's fork clattered against his plate. My brother-in-law, Robert, stared at me like I'd suddenly materialized from thin air. To be fair, I never intended to lie to Nicholas. I just didn't correct him when he assumed I worked as a regular financial analyst. He thought I spent my days reviewing payroll records and generating spreadsheets. I let him believe that. It was easier that way. In reality, my unit specializes in uncovering large-scale fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and shell corporations buried beneath years of fake paperwork. We're the ones who follow the paper trail when someone's life looks too perfect on the outside. And most of the time, we find exactly what we're looking for. I never brought work home. My laptop was government-issued and encrypted. My notes stayed in a locked drawer in a locked office. Nicholas once asked me why I never talked about my clients. "NDA stuff," I said with a smile, and he left it at that. He wasn't suspicious. Why would he be? I was boring little Vanessa, reliable, quiet, unthreatening. That illusion worked just fine until 5 months ago, when a tip landed on my desk. A company named Bradley and Kent Development was winning government bids far above market rates. Our initial audit flagged anomalies, inflated costs, ghost subcontractors, impossible tax write-offs. My division got involved. 3 weeks into the investigation, we uncovered the executive board. I almost choked when I saw the name at the top. Pamela Foster, Nicholas's sister-in-law, CEO. She had married his older brother Robert nearly a decade ago. The family treated her like royalty. She drove luxury cars to Sunday dinners, wore red carpet gowns to backyard parties, and handed out backhanded compliments like candy, and she hated me. I was too plain, too quiet, too forgettable to be worthy of their inner circle. Pamela never missed a chance to remind me of that. Now the universe had handed me something I didn't ask for, but I was absolutely going to use. Not for revenge, for justice. Nicholas knocked gently on my office door that morning. I was already at my desk, reviewing expense ledgers linked to Bradley and Kent. My coffee had gone cold. I hadn't touched it in an hour. "You're skipping the dinner tonight?" he asked, already bracing for my answer. I didn't look up. "I've got a full docket." "It's Mom's birthday, Ness." His voice softened. "You know she'd love to see you. Pamela is already saying you won't show because you think you're better than the rest of us." I closed the folder slowly and looked at him. He wasn't wrong. That's exactly what Pamela would say. "She thinks I'm some bitter wallflower," I said dryly. "It's fine. Let her." But Nicholas just stood there, his eyes tired, his shoulders slightly slumped. "Can you come? Just for an hour?" I sighed. "Fine, but I'll be late." What I didn't say was that before I arrived, I'd be meeting with my director and our internal legal team. The documents we'd been compiling, wire transfers, falsified invoices, shell acquisitions, were enough to justify a full federal audit. That morning, I signed off on the official request to freeze Pamela's business accounts. By 9 a.m. tomorrow, she'd be under investigation, and there would be no escaping it. Still, I kept my promise. That evening, I dressed simply. A black blouse, gold studs, and a low bun, and drove to the Foster family estate, which sat smugly on a hill like it owned the valley beneath it. Pamela's pride and joy. I arrived just before 8 p.m. The driveway was full of imported cars. The house glowed like it had been lit for a magazine shoot. As soon as I walked in, Nicholas's mother greeted me with warm eyes and a relieved smile. "Pamela has been asking about you," she said. I smiled politely. Of course she has. From the dining room, I heard silverware clinking and glasses chiming. Laughter floated through the air, elegant, rehearsed. I stepped inside and saw Pamela at the head of the table, wearing a sequined gold gown, a diamond necklace too large for the occasion, and a smile sharp enough to draw blood. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," she said, lifting her glass. "Busy night at the accounting firm?" Nicholas reached under the table and squeezed my hand gently. I returned her smile with calm precision. Something like that. Dinner was served with all the ceremony of a royal banquet. Pamela had imported a private chef for the evening. French trained, she boasted, and insisted on announcing every course as if she'd personally curated the menu from Versailles. "Braised lamb over parsnip puree," she purred, waving toward the plates. "But of course, if anyone's still counting calories, there's a garden salad for the accountants among us." A few awkward chuckles rose from the table. Nicholas gave me a sideways glance. I didn't flinch. I was used to it. Pamela thrived on performance, and humiliation was her favorite stage trick. "So, Vanessa," she continued, setting down her wine glass with a graceful clink, "tell us what's new in your thrilling world of spreadsheets and tax forms." I met her gaze, calm and unfazed. "It's been a busy quarter." She smirked. "I'm sure." Meanwhile, Bradley and Kent just closed the deal on a $60 million development in Midtown. Ever heard of a contract that size, Nicholas? Nicholas forced a tight smile. "Can't say I have." "Well," she said, lifting her glass again, "not everyone can handle numbers with that many zeros." Right then, she turned back to me. "But I'm sure you're doing important work, small business audits, that kind of thing." I took a sip of my water. "Something like that." Her eyes glittered. "You know, you should come shadow me one day, get a glimpse into how real companies operate. Not everyone can survive in the deep end." Under the table, Nicholas's hand tensed against mine again. He knew I was holding back, and he also knew what it meant when I stayed this calm. "But you're lucky, really," Pamela went on, her tone mockingly sincere. "You don't have the pressure I deal with. Regulatory agencies breathing down my neck, lawsuits, tax reviews. It's exhausting being a leader." Across the table, Nicholas's father let out a light chuckle. "Sounds like you need a vacation." Pamela laughed. "Maybe I'll take the yacht out again, the one we picked up in Cannes last month. You remember, Rob?" Her husband nodded, grinning, entirely oblivious. Just as I was preparing to excuse myself, Nicholas's mother looked around. "Are we expecting another guest?" "Oh, yes," Pamela beamed. "I almost forgot. My new business partner should be arriving soon. I told him to join us for dessert. He's very influential, government ties even, a brilliant man." She reached for her glass again, lips curved smugly. "You'll love him, Vanessa. He's from your world, just slightly higher up." I folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. "Is that so?" A knock echoed through the marble hallway. Pamela lit up. "That must be him." The butler stepped away to answer, and then the air shifted because the man who stepped through the doorway wasn't her business partner. It was my director, Mr. Wilson. Pamela's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. The entire table fell silent. Pamela didn't move. Her hand hovered above the stem of her broken glass, fingers trembling slightly. Her smile twitched at the edges, trying to reassemble itself. Director Wilson, she said after a long pause, rising slowly. What a surprise. Mr. Wilson didn't acknowledge her right away. His eyes moved across the table, scanning each face before landing on me. You didn't tell them, did you, Vanessa? The air thickened. Nicholas turned toward me. I felt his fingers loosen beneath the table, not in fear, but in realization. No, I said softly. I haven't told them anything. Pamela's voice pitched higher. Told us what? Mr. Wilson smiled politely, then pulled out the empty chair next to her and sat down like he was settling in for dessert. That your sister-in-law here is the lead federal auditor assigned to Bradley and Kent, and that starting tomorrow morning, your company will be under formal investigation. You could have heard a pin drop. Nicholas's father blinked twice. Robert's mouth fell open. Nicholas stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. But Pamela went pale. That's insane, she whispered. Vanessa, she's not... Her breath caught. You're just a low-level accountant. You don't handle... this... I reached into my purse, removed the leather badge wallet, and laid it gently on the table. The gold seal gleamed under the chandelier. I do. Pamela took a half step back, knocking into her chair. You've been investigating me? No, I said evenly. I've been investigating your company, but as of this evening, I'm formally recusing myself from the case. Mr. Wilson nodded. We're here tonight to inform you of that. I'll be taking over full oversight. Pamela's husband stood abruptly. This is outrageous. You can't just barge in here. Actually, I interrupted, we can. You might want to sit down, Rob. On what grounds? Pamela spat, finding her voice again. What exactly are you accusing me of? I turned toward her, voice steady. Let's start with the $60 million deal you mentioned tonight. Then we'll move on to the $42 million transferred through ghost vendors to shell accounts in the Caymans. Or maybe the 3 offshore properties acquired last year during the same quarter, your company reported operational losses. Nicholas's mother clutched her pearls. Pamela, is that true? Pamela let out a shaky laugh. This is a setup. She's jealous. This is revenge. Mr. Wilson reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a phone. I'm sure the court will love this a setup. He hit play. Pamela's voice echoed through the room. Relax, Finn. Auditors are clueless. They chase paper. We own the ink. Robert sat down hard. I turned to Pamela. You invited the government into your home tonight. I just didn't have the heart to stop you. Pamela lunged across the table, snatching the phone from Mr. Wilson's hand as if she could erase her own words by sheer will. Her face was taut with panic now, lipstick smudged, nostrils flared. This doesn't prove anything, she barked, waving the phone. You're bluffing. You don't have real evidence. I calmly reached for my briefcase and unlatched it. I'd like to remind you, Pamela, I said, laying a folder flat on the table, that 3 months ago, you invited me to your office. You asked me to review your corporate returns because you said they bored you. I spent 4 uninterrupted hours in that space. She froze. You mean... Yes, I said, flipping open the folder, revealing time-stamped photographs. The safe behind the Van Gogh replica, the set of ledgers marked miscellaneous contracts. I recorded every page. Her hands trembled now. You sneaky little... Careful, Mr. Wilson warned, voice cold. That's the kind of language people tend to regret under oath. Robert finally spoke, his voice thick. This can't be real. Nicholas leaned forward, his voice steady for the first time all night. You lied to all of us, Pamela. You bragged about deals you knew were illegal. You mocked my wife while she was building a case to save people from your fraud. I wasn't hurting anyone, she screamed. You think rich investors care where the money comes from? My voice dropped an octave. Your company redirected retirement funds from a federal employee union to fake contractors. Her lips parted, but no words came. From the hallway, footsteps echoed again. 2 plainclothes agents entered, their jackets marked with federal ID. Ms. Foster, one of them said firmly, we have a warrant for your arrest. Pamela backed away, knocking over a chair. You can't do this. This is my house. No, I corrected. This house was purchased with laundered funds. It's government property now. Nicholas's mother burst into tears. His father said nothing. He simply stared down at his empty plate like he might never eat again. You ruined my life, Pamela screamed as the agents cuffed her. I stood, adjusting my collar. No, I said softly. You ruined your own life. I just revealed the truth. She twisted in their grasp, mascara streaking down her cheek. You'll regret this, Vanessa. I don't think so, I replied. But you might. You've got 30 years to think it over. The agents led her out the front door, heels clacking violently against the marble. Mr. Wilson collected the evidence from the table and gave Nicholas a respectful nod. We'll be in touch. I took a breath and looked around the room. Plates full of untouched food, candles still flickering in a silence that said everything words couldn't. Happy birthday, I thought grimly. After leaving the dinner, I briefed Director Wilson in the car about my decision to recuse myself from the case due to my family connection. We had planned this confrontation carefully. Earlier that day, I had called him to explain Pamela's mention of a government partner joining for dessert. We both realized it was the perfect opportunity to serve the warrant that our legal team had prepared that morning. The timing couldn't have been better. Pamela had essentially invited federal agents into her home on the very night we were ready to move forward with the case. The next morning, I woke early and turned on the news. As expected, the story had already broken. Every major outlet ran with the headline, Bradley and Kent CEO arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud probe. Underneath was a photo of Pamela being escorted into a federal vehicle, her designer coat draped awkwardly over cuffed wrists. Her usual smirk was gone, replaced by a stunned blankness that made her look suddenly ordinary. At my desk, I sipped black coffee and watched the news in silence. They're reporting losses across 4 states, my colleague Jane said, placing a thick binder in front of me. 3 offshore properties seized, at least $130 million in redirected funds, most of it from public infrastructure grants. Any sign of where the rest is? I asked. We're working on it. She wasn't alone. Of course she wasn't. These schemes never run solo. Pamela was the face, the charm. But behind her was a web of partners, fake board members, shady consultants. And Robert, her husband, had insisted he knew nothing, but under pressure, he'd started to crack. That week, I watched a different kind of collapse unfold. Nicholas sat on the edge of our bed one night, face buried in his hands. I don't get it, he muttered. Robert was always the favorite, the golden one, and now he's bargaining with the DA. I placed a hand on his back. That's what happens when everything is built on a lie. His voice broke. My parents. They trusted her with everything. The house, their savings. She took it all. She didn't just take money, I said quietly. She took their pride. The mansion was seized within 10 days. I helped Nicholas's parents relocate to a modest home closer to town. Quiet, manageable, and fully theirs. His mother cried when she signed the lease. Thank you, she said, holding my hands. We treated you like you were invisible. I'm so sorry. You were just looking in the wrong direction, I said. Pamela knew how to shine, but you can't fake integrity. About a month after the arrest, I met Pamela again, this time in an interrogation room. Her once perfect hair was limp, her blazer wrinkled, and her nails chewed down to nothing. Well, if it isn't the quiet little accountant, she sneered. I'm not here for revenge, I said. I'm here to offer a deal. She scoffed. Why would you do that? After what I said, what I did? Because you have a choice, I said simply. Give us the names. Help us recover what you stole, and we might get that 30-year sentence down to 10. Her mask cracked, and 3 hours later, she started talking. 12 more arrests followed. Nearly $150 million was recovered. And with that, the empire Pamela built on glitter and deception was reduced to files, warrants, and closed accounts. Sentencing came 6 months later. Pamela got 12 years. Robert got 8. The rest of the inner circle received between 5 and 15, depending on how cooperative they'd been. Some cried in court. Some stared blankly ahead. Pamela didn't look at me once. I didn't need her to. That day, Nicholas's mother hugged me in the courthouse hallway, her arms trembling. "I'm so sorry, Vanessa," she whispered. "We never saw you. You were right in front of us, and we looked past you." I held her gently. "You weren't looking past me," I said. "You were staring at a spotlight. I just don't need one." Nicholas and I went home that evening in silence. No victory speech, no celebration, just a quiet dinner at our kitchen table, the same one we'd shared for years. It felt strange how normal everything looked, considering how much had changed. "You ever regret it?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Keeping it all secret?" I thought for a moment. "I don't regret protecting the truth. Some things only work when they stay hidden long enough to matter." He nodded. "I just hate that it was her." "So do I admitted. "But that's the irony of arrogance. She handed me the keys to her empire the day she decided I wasn't worth watching." Later that night, I sat alone in my home office. On my desk was a framed photo from that birthday dinner, taken seconds before it all collapsed. Pamela stood in the center, glass raised, grin wide. I looked at her frozen expression and wondered how many lives she'd broken just to keep that smile. We still don't talk. She sends the occasional letter from prison, mostly demands and threats. I don't respond. Her empire's gone, her power dissolved, and her name now lives in a file we teach new agents, the Foster collapse. Mr. Wilson retired 2 months later. Before he left, he handed me his badge. "You've earned this," he said. "You don't need to be loud to be effective. You just need to be sharp." I'm still with the Bureau, still quietly digging through numbers that don't quite add up. I don't need people to know my name. I don't need their approval. But I've learned something. Sometimes justice doesn't roar into the room. Sometimes it walks in quietly, smiles politely, sits down at the table, and brings the whole house down.